Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today. And though you've come through many obstacles.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to Cobra Kai episode 6. So we are entering the back half of the season, and we seem to have gotten a lot more recruits at Cobra Kai thanks to Johnny kicking Kyler's ass at the school. He basically did some free advertising, not only just showing what he's learned, but legitimately saying it's Cobra Kai during such. So now everybody knows, and now everybody wants to learn it as well. Which it's like, I guess that's fair. Because as I've stated, and I want to make it clear again here, there are certain situations and all where you need to be a little more aggressive. Whether it's bullies, or if like if like in a real life situation outside of school and stuff, if someone's like attacking you or trying to mug you or something, sometimes you have to be able to defend yourself or others. And sometimes that involves getting aggressive and violent, even if you don't want to. Sometimes it's required. Because if you don't, you could die, or other people that you care about could die. Sometimes violence is necessary. And with Miguel, it was necessary in that case. He was defending Sam. And on top of that, he understood that these bullies weren't just going to give up, and that telling an adult would have done nothing. That's what a lot of people say you should do. It's like, oh, you should just go right to an adult, and it's like, they're not going to do anything, you know. That's the reason bullying has persisted in schools for so long, and why it's been such a problem. Because the parents don't do anything. The adults, the administrators, etc. Or even if they say they're going to do something, or even if they try, it just makes things worse. It doesn't actually solve the problem. So it's oftentimes not something that you can really do. Learning to defend yourself and others, learning to be able to stand up to people like that is important. And Miguel doing so was necessary. It was at that point where it needed to happen. And I'm not saying that this will necessarily solve everything either. We don't know yet how Kyler and his Goonies are going to react to this. We don't know. But with so many others in the school now going to Cobra Kai as well, they'll be able to defend themselves a lot easier, which will take the power away from Kyler and his goons. This is a good thing overall. And it's like, I understand the more pacifist point of view, where it's like, yeah, you don't want to fight, and it's like fighting is just going to make things worse in a lot of situations and all. And sure, in some situations it could. But you also sometimes have to take that route. You have to go with that decision if it's all you have. Sometimes it's necessary. Even if it's not the nicest decision, even if it's not something you want to do. You should never want to actively like fight and hurt people. It should always be something you only do when you need to. But if you need to do it, do it. That's what I'm trying to say here. But we also have Johnny's son getting major jealous here because he saw Johnny and Miguel really getting along. And so he goes and decides to get a job at Daniel's dealership. And here's the thing. I know this kid is a teenager. I understand that. I understand he's probably not thinking about it completely. But if he did, he would realize that this is on him. That the reason Johnny is connecting with Miguel and everything is because he pushed his father away. It's not because Johnny doesn't like him or care about him. Johnny very much does. Johnny would love for him to be in his life. But he pushed Johnny away. Pretty aggressively about it, too. And so he feels betrayed about Johnny hanging out with Miguel and seeing Miguel as a surrogate son. It's like, what else was Johnny supposed to do? Like, this is fully on his son. So, yeah, Sam has kind of broken connections with her old friends who are just weird assholes. As well as obviously with Kyler now. So she's kind of on her own, because even her other friend, her older friend, the one who's being picked on for her weight, I can't remember her name right now, but even she's not really willing to hang out with Sam at the moment. So Sam kind of has nothing, but Miguel did stand up for her, and she very much had some... I'm terrible at wording things today. She was very obviously appreciative, as evidenced by her reaction to what he did. Excuse me. So yeah, there's a very strong possibility they're going to get together, which is good. I mean, obviously, our two young leads, counting out, Johnny and Daniel, the two younger teenage leads of this, because they're leads as well. Getting together would just honestly make a lot of sense, yes, but also, I'd believe it. Based on what we've had so far and everything, I felt like it's kind of evidenced that it was going to go this route anyway. And I could see them working well together. I could see them having chemistry and being good for each other. So we'll see how that ends up going. But yeah, I'm definitely interested to see what more is going to happen. Daniel has kind of gotten his groove back. You could say he's doing a lot better. He got angry. He let his emotions take control of him, but he's realized this. He went to Mr. Miyagi's grave, made me cry, and came to terms with the fact that he's always been quite hot-headed and needs to just chill the fuck out a little bit. And so he started practicing karate again, as we saw there. Even if just practicing the moves and the motions and everything and the breathing, it's going to allow him to focus himself a little better, which is smart. It's a great thing. And now with so many more members at Cobra Kai, I wonder, is Daniel going to start his own thing? Is he going to bring back Miyagi-Do? And are we going to have a karate dojo rivalry? Because I could dig that. I could legitimately dig that. And then that's probably where it's going. So, and if so, I would assume that Johnny's son, since he got the job at the dealership, is probably going to learn karate from Daniel. Just because I feel like that's the direction it's going with his character. Maybe Sam as well. But maybe some of the people from Cobra Kai will end up going over too. It's hard to say. There's a lot you have to take into account. And it's going to be interesting to see. Because I don't feel like a lot of these kids who came to Cobra Kai know how Johnny teaches karate. Because he's kind of a hard ass and everything. And it's worked for Miguel. It's worked very much for Miguel. But it wouldn't work for everyone. Not everyone would be able to put up with that. I know I wouldn't if I were in that situation. I can't handle that kind of thing. Any kind of major pressure or just someone being abusive like that towards me, just it practically causes me to shut down. It really, like, it mentally and emotionally just kind of destroys me to where I can't really do anything. And it's like, I've experienced this enough in real life to know exactly, like, how it just fucks me up, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. It's like in Sing 2, the Illumination movie, Sing 2. Johnny is trying to learn dancing, and his instructor is a hard ass, and he can't learn that way. So he ends up finding a different instructor who teaches him through positive reinforcement. And the second instructor helps him learn to dance, and it helps him because it's what he needs. It's how he learns. He can't deal with all the pressure and pain and hate and abuse from his original instructor. So it's kind of the same for me. I would never be able to deal with that. It would just emotionally destroy me and leave me kind of like unresponsive at times. Again, speaking from experience, because I've been in those kind of positions. But yeah. So I don't know if everybody there is going to be able to handle that. In fact, I'm sure a lot of them probably aren't. So while he's gotten an influx of students right now, I don't think Johnny's going to be able to keep a hold of all of them. Which means some of them might have to learn from Daniel. Or some of them just might drop out of the idea altogether. Because let's be honest, they only went there just because they saw what Miguel did. It was just like, they were basically bandwagoning. It's like, oh, Miguel got so cool all of a sudden, let's jump on. And it's just like, okay, but not everybody's going to be able to stick with that, you know? I've taken karate lessons when I was a kid. Very few of them, not a lot, but I have taken some lessons. Mostly because I dropped out because I couldn't handle it. I chose to stop going, and I didn't want to go because I could not handle it. And it's harsh. It can be very harsh, even with teachers who aren't really that bad. Like the senseis I had were not like Johnny. They were not like that abusive and horrible. But they also weren't quite like Daniel either, to be fair. They weren't like super positive reinforcement and nicer and everything. So I couldn't even handle that. I could not handle Johnny. um, but yeah, I just feel like there's a lot that could be done in the second half with what we've been set up with. Um, and I definitely think it is going to lead to Daniel like starting to teach as well, and the two sides are probably going to eventually meet in a tournament, kind of mirroring the first Karate Kid and everything. So that's my prediction. But I've talked long enough. These are actually pretty long pre-thoughts, so I'll just end that here. Enough with the chit-chattering, and we will get on to the reaction. So, when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So this series is all about growth. Growth as a person through things like karate and relationships and whatnot. This series gives a huge focus to that kind of stuff in a very smart, believable way. But we also see that these characters need growth. Johnny is kind of an asshole. In fact, not even kind of, he's an asshole. Some of these characters are very timid and nervous and not altogether confident in themselves. Daniel is emotional, very prone to anger even. And Johnny's son acts out because of the neglect from both of his parents. The point is that all these characters have issues. None of them are perfect. And they go through these journeys in this series to better themselves. Even Miguel, who is like one of the nicest, more progressive, likable characters in this, definitely one of the better ones. He struggled with being bullied, with self-confidence, with really just being able to handle a lot of harsher situations. But he's become better at that. He's become better with even talking to others, such as Sam. He's now joking with her and sending her little messages that are cutesy and fun and everything, and getting her to laugh. Like, to truly, genuinely laugh. Even Miguel had some issues that he's been working out, and he's still working on them to a degree. He hasn't, like, perfected them. And that's great. That even the more likable, like, seemingly good characters still have issues. That's an important thing to show, that no one is perfect. No one has it down. Not everyone is as bad off as, say, Johnny, but no one really is completely good either. So this episode touched a lot on Johnny and specifically his backstory. We find out that when he was a young kid, younger than what we ever saw him in the movies as, he was part of a pretty broken family. He didn't have any friends. He was kind of the loser kid, and his family situation was pretty shit too. His parents would constantly fight. His father would berate and look down on him. And he basically traded one abuser for another when he signed up for Cobra Kai. Going from his father, who would constantly berate and abuse him, to Cress, who would do the same. And the only difference here is with Cobra Kai, he was getting something out of it. While at home with his father and stuff, it's like they were well off, but he wasn't getting anything out of it. He was constantly like being disrespected and losing his own self-respect, losing his own self-dignity, just losing his confidence in himself. So he gained that back with Cobra Kai. So it's a equal but opposite situation where, again, same type of abuse, but getting something from it this time. And that's why he stuck with that. And unfortunately, he ended up becoming the very bullies that he had to deal with. And it affected him for his entire life. And this can happen. People will want to become the bullies to avoid being bullied themselves. And a lot of times they just don't know how to go back after that. They like the feeling of having that sense of power, that sense of control in their lives. They're afraid that if they stop being bullies in a way, that they'll be bullied again, that they'll lose that control. And I fully understand. While I've never like actively, intentionally bullied someone, I've definitely felt that lack of control, that sense of doubt and pain and misery. I understand what it feels like. To where there are times where I have wanted to join in. I chose not to, luckily. Oh, excuse me. And the closest things I've ever did were basically what Miguel was doing. The closest things I've ever gone into with that is defending others with aggression. And mind you, I did that very little, and there was only one time I actually ever hit someone, or rather kicked them. But for the most part, it's just like, I didn't like that side of me that was getting aggressive. And so I chose to actively fight against it and stay away from it, rather than learn more healthy ways to utilize it. Which, in and of itself, isn't necessarily good or bad, but it could have helped if I learned healthy ways to utilize it. But we see here that Johnny has become his father. He's become Cress. And he's bullying and abusing and berating his new students so much that a lot of them end up leaving. The most notable example of this is with Miguel's friend, who has the scar from the cleft lip. Johnny constantly abuses and demeans him, calling him Lip as a nickname, and just nailing in how horrible he thinks it looks. And it's wholly fucked up. Like, I've seen shit like this in school, back when I was in like middle school and high school and all. I've seen people say shit like this. And it's absolutely fucked up, and that always pissed me off. And I'm happy about that. I'm proud of that. I'm proud that always pissed me off. Because it should. If you see someone being bullied for reasons like that, especially for the way they look in any regard, you should get angry. You should get really angry at that. And I honestly wish I could have taken action, that I was brave enough, honestly, to take action back then, more than I did. Again, I only really did so like once, maybe twice. And only physically once, for sure. I only like actively fought someone once. And again, it's like I didn't like it, so I tended to be pretty pacifistic when I was younger and did not like physical fighting at all. Um, yeah, but anyway, so we see Johnny having to come to terms with the fact that he had been there, that he wasn't prepared for this situation of having all of these new students, and he doesn't know how to handle it. But he had been there. He had been in the opposite side. He was a loser kid. And he has to deal with that. And while he doesn't apologize for making fun of them, he acknowledges that he used to be there to them. He tells them that they need to get stronger so they can basically fight back against this. And it's not the perfect way to make up for what he did and said and everything. It's not. In fact, it's not even really that great of a way. But it's something. It's growth. We actively see Johnny grow as a character in this episode. And we see even other characters grow around him and in regards to him. Miguel's friend ends up changing his entire look, deciding to do something about the way people think of him, and it earns Johnny's respect. Johnny's basically like, this is what I'm talking about. Take back your life. Take control. And it's like, okay, and we're starting to see that growth. And I like that. And then we had the stuff with Johnny's son, whose name I am still not remembering. I hope to get it down. They even said it a number of times during this episode. I can't think of it. But he's working at the dealership now, at Daniel's dealership, and he's doing a fine job. Like, he's doing his job. It's not like he's just fucking around. So you gotta kind of give him that. But the senior staff members, including Daniel's cousin, are harassing him. They're not being mean to him, but they're fucking with him and telling him to do stuff that they know is wrong, just to basically rib at him. Because it's basically just the idea of fucking with the new guy. And it's something I've never understood. Like, why do people think that's funny? That's rude and just kind of gross behavior. Very much unprofessional. So, like, we see him, like, tell the kid, it's like, oh, we were talking about shifting things around in the showroom. Can you move this car over by the window? And it's like, again, that sounds reasonable. But the problem is, it's in the middle of the day, all these people around. You don't do that in the middle of the day when all these people are around. You do that after the dealership closes or before it opens. You do that when you don't have to deal with all of that kind of shit. So it's like, yeah, obviously a bad thing. And he gets yelled at right away when he starts the car. He starts the car to move it. And he's doing what he was told to. Again, he's not actually doing anything technically. Well, I mean, he is doing something wrong, but he's not like acting out or being an asshole or anything. But Daniel comes out and he yells at him. It's like, what are you thinking? And it's like, in Daniel's mind, he's just like, he is doing something wrong. He is just like being kind of idiotic. But then Daniel even realizes he was wrong. After the kid storms out, Daniel notices his cousin laughing and everything and realizes, oh, it's these fuckheads. So he goes out, he talks to him in a very positive manner with respect. And he even teaches him how to make a proper fist. So it's like, you can see the heavy difference between how Johnny and Daniel handle situations and how they handle their emotions. And it even acknowledges that Daniel is quick to anger. He's been acknowledging that, and he's been working on that. So when the cousin ends up getting punished, he ribs the kid again, this time telling him, like, I usually go to Daniel's home to deliver these sales reports and stuff. You could go do it, take it off my back for me. And he, even though the kid's like, you're not messing with me again, right? He's wary, but he is convinced to do it. And yeah, he was ribbing with him. It's just a magazine. But this allows him to see Daniel practicing karate, and he gets interested. And I think part of this is obviously also because, again, he knows Daniel is his father's rival. And so he knows this will also fuck with his father. But I think he is genuinely interested in karate. I mean, we kind of saw that. We kind of saw him showing interest in learning from his father, even. Until, again, he saw his father with Miguel. But yeah, so I think he is definitely interested. And he's learning from Daniel now, also because of the rivalry. But you also saw how happy Daniel was to teach him, too. Because he tried to get both of his children to join in. And Sam really wasn't interested. And his other kid was just not really into it at all. Like, he's just into the video games and stuff, which is fine. And Daniel's got to realize that. Some kids aren't into a lot of physical activity. Some are just into video games and shit. And there's nothing wrong with that. And this kid seems to have good taste, too, playing Tekken. It's like, that's my favorite fighting game franchise. So, I got to give him credit there. And he was using Law, so good choice. I like using Law as well. Looked like he was facing Kazuya from what I could tell, but I wasn't 100% sure. It was a very brief glance. My go-tos are the likes of Lily and Lee, though. But I do like using Law as well. He has some pretty good moves. But yeah, so it's like, don't just knock on this kid just because he doesn't want to do like physical exercise and stuff, just because he prefers video games. That's just what he prefers, and there's, again, nothing wrong with that. Hell, maybe you can even see if he might be interested in games that do physical exercise. There are games like that. DDR, Ring Fit, etc. You can get video games that incorporate real physical exercise, so maybe see if you can get him to do that. And if not, then live with it, honestly. You can't force him to get into things that he's not into. It doesn't work like that, and that's just going to honestly breed a lot of resentment. So, yeah, this episode is showing a lot of characters growing and a lot of characters with the potential for growth in the future. I just hope it doesn't try to paint Daniel's son as being wrong and try, like, even if it has him start karate, I want it to be on his decision, you know? I hope it doesn't try to paint it as like, oh, he was wrong to be like, quote unquote, lazy all the time. Because that would honestly piss me off if they went that route, because it's like, that's a fucked up thing to do or say or whatnot. Even in a series that is focused around a very physical activity, it's like, that's still extremely rude and just false to say about someone like that. But either way, tell me in the comments below, what did you think of this episode of Cobra Kai? And thank you so much for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.